Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rake the Take, a golf betting podcast hosted by me, Chris Lewis. And this is an addendum for the Waste Management Phoenix Open. I just decided to add some more guys to my card after I recorded the podcast. I just felt like that there were some people that I was really missing. And I kind of went a little crazy. I added 8 more guys. I don't know what to say. I just, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't take them. I'm just kidding, but it was one of those things where it's just like, I felt like I was leaving value on the table, and I had to take it. So I did, and here we are. But yeah, I'm just going to go through these guys pretty quickly and talk about why I like them. But yeah, Robert McIntyre, he's one of the guys. You can get him at 60-1. And the reason why I like him is because his game is just so solid all around tee to green. He's a very good driver of the golf ball, very solid on approach, and great around the greens. The putting has been a little hit or miss recently, but he's historically been a very good putter throughout his career. So, and he's also been a proven winner now on the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour. He's just a very good player overall, and so I feel like at 60-1, like that's a great price for him to be able to win in this kind of field, which I definitely think that he can do. It's a good course fit because of the around the green and the tee to green ability. Like, he's just a very good player overall. He was ranked like 5th on my model this week, and he was kind of the main reason why I wanted to kind of add more guys, because I felt like, why am I not taking the 5th rated guy on my model when he's so kind of far back in comparison to that on the betting board? I just felt like I would have had a hard time sleeping at night if I didn't take him. And that's kind of similar for a lot of these guys that I also have taken. Kind of moving on from that, I have Davis Thompson. I added him at 90-1. And kind of similarly to McIntyre, Davis Thompson is just very solid tee to green. Lately, though, his approach play has kind of been a little lackluster ever since he won at the John Deere. He just really hasn't been that consistent there in the beginning of 2025. It's also been kind of a slow start for him on approach and just creating opportunities. So hopefully I don't really feel like that this is too much of a downward trend and more so something that is just kind of an early season slump. He played well here last year, finishing tied for 15th. And I generally do feel like, though, that Davis Thompson has such a well-rounded game that he can really succeed anywhere. And so I feel like this could be a good bounce-back spot for him, given that he has some positive course history and that he's just a very solid driver of the golf ball. So he can really kind of take advantage of a lot of these opportunities that he's going to have at this course. So I do really like Davis Thompson this week for all of those other reasons. And plus, like, he's in the 94th percentile around the greens, which is something I'm really looking at this week. To continue on with that, Denny McCarthy, he's another guy that I really like this week, and he was at 105-1. With him, kind of similar to like Mackenzie Hughes, like I talked about in the first podcast. He's not necessarily like a proficient ball striker. He lacks a lot of the distance, kind of similarly to Andrew Putnam, but he's very accurate off the tee, and is a very solid approach player. But Denny McCarthy is also has one of the best short games in the world. Around the greens, he's great, and he's a phenomenal putter. Last year, he finished tied for 22nd here after a history of kind of poor results at this event, outside of a tie for 33rd finish in 2019. But, I do still believe overall in Denny McCarthy, even though this hasn't necessarily been the best spot for him historically. I just think that the course fit profile is there, and this could be definitely an event where it's like, because of the ease of the greens, that maybe he could really just have a great week putting. So I do like Denny McCarthy for that short game, and even his approach play is pretty solid too. Harry Hall is another guy that's kind of similar to these players. A little bit more like Mackenzie Hughes in the sense that he's a pretty average driver of the golf ball in terms of distance, maybe a little longer than that. And it has poor accuracy off the tee, which kind of can be offset here. But he's really improved on approach, especially from 50 to 100 yards and 100 to 50 yards, 100 to 150 yards. And even like on the longer approach shots from 150 to over 200 yards, he's been pretty good there too. The around the green game and the putter have been phenomenal, both in the upper 90 percentiles. And then he's just been in great form as of late, kind of beginning 2025 and ending 2024. He's just been on a great run of events, really ever since July. He's just been one of the most improved players in the past 6 months, I would say, for sure. 6 to 8 months. So yeah, I do like Harry Hall a lot. And at 110 to 1, I just feel like that's a really good value. He could definitely win in this event. So I just think that's a really good price to be able to snag him at, even because I feel like you're getting a good kind of opportunity to buy on the dip because he didn't really play well at Pebble Beach. So and I'm not really going to punish him for that. But yeah, then I also have Ben Griffin at 135 to 1. He's not exactly like an amazing driver of the golf ball either. He's not very, he doesn't hit it at a very extreme distance. And he's kind of accurate off the tee, but his approach play is great. He's in the 78th percentile on approach. And pretty good at all the distances. Great around the greens in the 89th percentile, and a very solid putter at the 70th percentile. So it's like in those other aspects, he really doesn't have like any major flaws in his game, outside of the driver, which even in the driver, it's not like a huge weakness. He's only in the 53rd percentile. He's just pretty average there. But I would say that, Ben Griffin, outside of Pebble Beach and the Farmers Insurance Open, his form has been great over the past few months. A tie for 7th at the American Express, and then you have a tie for 15th at the RSM, 8th place at the Bermuda Championship, 24th at the Worldwide Technology, tied for 22nd at the Zozo. These are, I would say maybe weaker fields, but he finished tied for 28th here last year with poor ball striking, and the ball striking has been one of his more consistent skill sets over the past year. So I do feel like with Ben Griffin, there's still a lot of room to kind of grow off of that performance. And I still really like him overall as a player. I think he's a very solid overall golfer. And at 135 to 1, that's a great price. I just really couldn't leave that on the table either. Christian Bezuidenhout, he's another guy that I really like this week, and I decided to add him too. He's kind of similar to Mackenzie Hughes, not really great on approach or off the tee. He doesn't really have a ton of distance, but he's pretty accurate off the tee, and I think from 50 to 100 yards, he's pretty good, and 100 to 150, he's fine. It's more so kind of the longer distances where he really struggles. But, like all those other guys, he's great around the greens. And he kind of showed up last week on the leaderboard at Pebble until kind of imploding on the final couple days. Or really not even really imploding. It just kind of, he was pretty stagnant. But yeah, there was a period of time there where he was right up there in the top 5 on Saturday. So it just kind of shows just sort of how crazy that Pebble Beach tournament was. There's a lot of volatility in the scoring, but I do like him here. He's had some good performances. One good performance at this course, and the 2 times that he's played here, he had a tie for 28th finish last year, which is pretty solid. But a bad putting week. So I feel like putting, which is one of his biggest skill sets, if he can really improve on that here, I think that'd be a great sign for him. It's just been kind of a rough season so far for him ball striking wise, but I think that will kind of pick up as we kind of go along here because he's always been a very accurate driver of the golf ball, and 2024 was one of his more consistent seasons overall. So I do think the approach play and the driving will get back to kind of his career norms. But I do like Bezuidenhout at 200 to 1. I think that's a very solid price. And CT Pan, he is one of the last guys I have to talk about. There's one more after this, but yeah, Pan, he's just been very solid throughout the bag over the last few months, ever really since his tie for second finish at the John Deere Classic. He's had some really solid finishes. His approach play overall has been very solid, along with a very consistent around the green game and putter. So the short game is there, and he's very accurate off the tee. I think the one thing about him is that he kind of lacks some distance, and he's not really the farthest hitter off the tee, but he's very accurate here. So, I think that kind of sets up well for him. It's just, I think with him, he's picked up a lot of distance and really improved his ball striking overall. Even though he isn't necessarily one of the furthest hitters off the tee. So I do like the fact that he's been very accurate and the approach play has been very solid too. So I think it's like that overall, if you look at that approach play and the around the green ability, it's like the strength and the wedges really kind of plays well here at TPC Scottsdale. And I like that skill set here, even though he doesn't necessarily have the best course history. So I do think that with him, because of the form that he's in and the top 20s and the top 10s that he's been able to have, I do think that CT Pan is kind of an underrated play this week. And then after that, finally, I have Vincent Whaley, and he's been mainly kind of a short game specialist recently. The approach play has been kind of inconsistent, and he does have some very good distance off the tee, but not a ton of accuracy at all. So I do think he'll be able to take advantage of some of these shorter holes and some of the par fives. The approach play, really hasn't been all that good. But, on some of these holes, like especially the short fours, you can kind of hit it up close to the green and just be able to be good with your short game there. And I think he's the kind of player that can do that. So I like that about him. So I like the around the green and short game ability. I think that's really important for this week. And then from 50 to 100 yards and distance-wise, he's been very solid. It's just really those longer irons that have been kind of the struggle for him. But yeah, overall, that's everybody I wanted to add for this week. For the since I recorded, and yeah, I just really wanted to get this back out there for you guys as soon as possible. I know it's late for some of you, but yeah, here we go, and thank you so much for listening.